let's say you want to create your own Android app and you want to create that as a business. You want to be the next Uber or Facebook or anything like that with your Android app. Now, one thing is you can release that through open source on GitHub, or you can release it as closed source as you don't share the code. You can create it as a private repo or put on like Bitbucket or GitLab or something. Now, when releasing to open source, there is definitely pros and cons, and releasing to closed source, there is some pros and cons as well. The open source, there are a few pros, and I'll show you them. So with open source, you do have the chance of people contributing to your project. Now you don't have to really pay them; these are kind of free people. Now they don't. It's not like they're working for free for nothing. They're getting stuff out of it. They're getting a reward out of it. They're getting um, their contributions are being tracked, so they can show that to their employer and get paid. That's usually very popular with people that have had their first Android job, so that's very good for them. Kind of like a mini internship. So you do get that. You do get some people to help out a little bit. Don't expect people to do the entire project. You do have to hire developers. They're only going to do really the smaller things. Now, one other pro with open source is that with open source, people will download your app simply because it's open source. People will, advertise your app for you simply because it's open source. And what I mean by that is you may go to an open source blog and say, hey, my app is open source, and they'll advertise that. And of course, having your app on GitHub will have its popularity on there. You may become trending, so that's one other way to get more downloads. There's that pro. There are other pros, but those are pretty much the top ones. Now let's look at the cons. So the cons is that someone could steal your idea. Really, that you shouldn't really worry about that, but with open source, there is the ability for someone to take your code, fork it, and pretty much do something better. Now, you may think that this may happen very often, but thinking of the idea is the easy part. The hard part is implementing the idea. What I mean by that, you may think, there might have been millions of people that thought of the idea of creating a ride-sharing app similar to Uber, but a few people figured, why only think of it when you can implement it? Implementing the idea is the extremely hard part, in which most people won't do. People can people can fork your app, but you have to create something of value that they can't really fork and just put some stuff on there. You have to add more details to your app that's not into open source, such as a paid app and not putting those paid features on open source on GitHub, for example. Now, the other con is that for security. So since everything's open source, you do have to hide API keys and some security stuff. There is the possibility of committing something with an API key or a password. It's always a possibility with GitHub and Bitbucket and GitLab and all that. Having it open source, there always is the possibility of that. With that can be very dangerous, releasing your API keys for specific RESTful APIs, because they can control that and they can pretty much disable your accounts and everything. Just by putting too much traffic through, for example, and spending your money or something like that. But that is one con. What do I think? I think an Android app can be open source or closed source. I think the main thing is that you should have some things that are closed source, and those are the things that are going to make you a lot of money. These are the things that are paid. Either that, or you'll have things such as an Android app, then you have a back-end development stuff that bridges across, something to make it so people just can't fork your app and then just upload it to the Android, the Play Store, and that's it. They have your user base or whatever. That's not exactly gonna work, but I think open source and closed source is a great idea. You should just create some paid stuff, some paid features that aren't exactly open source.